Hi, I'm Abby Noy, and I'm an extension educator for the University of Minnesota.
I'm Devin Catalano, and I am an animal science master's student at the University of Minnesota. And this is Belle. She's one of the teaching mares at the university.
I'm Dr. Carrie Kuhl from the University of Minnesota West Metro Equine Practice, and today we're going to talk about leg wraps, and we'll talk specifically about how to wrap a lower limb in the event of an injury. Okay, so let's walk over and look at some of the materials that we have available to us for a lower limb bandage. We've got a variety of things here. These are called BB satins. They come in a pack of 12, and then we've got just some basic cotton wraps that come in a variety of sizes. We've got a couple of different kinds of gauze. A cling gauze, which is a stretchy, soft gauze. And then this is just simply called brown gauze. Vet wrap is our outer layer, and we are going to talk a lot about vet wrap and when it's appropriate and where it's appropriate to use. And then we've got our basic non-stick bandages that come in a variety of sizes. And then for tape, we have our handy Elasticon bandage, and then we've got your basic white tape, which we sometimes will use to add a little bit of security to a bandage on the outside. The one thing I do want to emphasize before we start applying our bandage is that some of the materials that we use to bandage horses' limbs with are very stretchy, and when you've got something that's very stretchy, it is easy to put it on too tightly. I have seen bandages applied that have actually caused blood vessel damage and sloughing of the skin. So vet wrap is one that everybody loves because it's very stretchy and it sticks to itself. However, if you put this right over the horse's skin or over a very thin bandage and over the skin, you can create some pretty impressive injuries, worse than what you started with. Your Elasticon tape is quite stretchy, and this can also be applied too tightly. So one thing that can make your life a lot easier before you even start your wrap is to unroll your tape. So you can have a partner, such as Abby, hold the end. Just re-roll it onto the tape. And when we go to apply this as our final step in the bandage, it will be very easy to just lay it on the skin. And so we're going to wrap Belle's leg, pretending that she has a wound on the front of her left cannon bone. And when you see a wound on your horse, especially a fresh wound, you want to assess the wound as quickly as possible and then call your veterinarian. So when you see a fresh wound, things to clean it with would be things, the rule of thumb is what you would put in your own eye. Sterile saline is a perfect wound cleansing solution. Similarly, you don't want to apply any ointments to a wound. It might make it more difficult for your veterinarian to suture the wound. So just get it clean and get it wrapped and call your veterinarian. We're going to start with our non-stick bandage and our soft cling gauze to cover Belle's wound. So we're going to put it over our wound. Hello, Belle. And we're going to take our nice soft cotton, and we always want to roll it so that it rolls off the back side, so you're not putting any pressure or tension on the cotton gauze itself. And it takes a little practice to be able to do these well, and so it's not a bad idea to practice these on a horse like Belle that isn't actually injured, so that you know what you're doing when the time comes that you really need to apply a bandage. It's always good to know how to do this when you're not under pressure. And so I'm just layering the cotton. I'm not putting any tension. I am just rolling it right off. And unlike our vet wrap, when we do this, I don't worry that I'm going to put any undue pressure on the blood vessels of the leg and cause any damage. So I'm just going to tuck that little piece in there so my bandage stays on nicely. Next, I'm going to use my cotton roll, and we're going to put on a 3-layer bandage. So the cotton roll is the first layer. Then we'll use a layer of brown gauze, and we'll finish with a layer of vet wrap. So we're going to start on the outside, and we're going to stay just below the carpus, or the knee, and we'll roll from front to back and outside to in. And once we get it around, we'll just make sure that our ends are tucked, we don't have any creases, and the bandage is nice and smooth so that we're not creating any pressure points anywhere on the leg, but especially over the flexor tendons that run down the back of the leg. Then we're going to take our brown gauze, and just like we did with the cling gauze, we're going to roll it off the back. And we're going to go up the leg, crossing over about 50% of the previous layer. And this will serve to sort of squeeze down our cotton, apply gentle pressure, which will help stop bleeding and prevent swelling. Okay, so our third layer is going to be our vet wrap, and I'm going to start right at the bottom and just make it nice and smooth. And I'll usually go around one complete time to secure it, and then I'll start to cross up, again covering about 50% of the lower wrap as I go. Now, vet wrap has a tendency to want to wrinkle, so sometimes I'll just keep my hands here to hold it. And that will keep it from wanting to crunch down. It also helps me apply the appropriate amount of tension, so I can pull on it a little bit here, and I've got it secured here, so I'm not pulling too hard. Another thing to keep in mind when you put your tension on any bandage material, if you pull when the bandage is, or the vet wrap or whatever is springy is on the front of the leg, then you're not applying any pressure to those flexor tendons. And with as much cotton as we've got on here, it's going to be pretty difficult to put too much pressure on, but it's something we just always want to be aware of. And feel free to adjust as you go. If you see that you're getting a wrinkle, you can always back it right off and readjust. And one thing that we should not forget to mention is that Belle is being a model patient right now and standing very still for us. When you've got a horse that truly is injured, that limb is going to be painful, and they may be a little bit more resistant to standing still. So be sure you've got good help restraining the horse. So the last step is our elasticon. So remember that we unrolled the elasticon before we started so that it would very easily roll right off. And you are going to want to have your bandage scissors handy because you cannot tear the elasticon. So there's two reasons why we would use elasticon on a bandage like this. One is to secure it so it doesn't slide down. So that's what our piece around the top will provide. So I put it on so that it covers just a little bit of the vet wrap, all of the cotton, and then it secures to the skin itself. And you may need to go around twice, depending on how much cotton you leave at the top. And you can see that I am literally just rolling it off and laying it onto the skin. I'm not pulling or putting any tension on whatsoever. And then at the bottom, if this were to stay on and the horse would go in a stall, shavings could get up underneath. So this is just going to keep everything clean and comfortable at the bottom. And there's our completed bandage. Okay, so this is the cotton that we use to wrap Belle, and as you can see, it is quite long. So if you are simply going to apply a bandage and wait for your veterinarian to arrive shortly, you wouldn't necessarily need to use the entire roll. If the bandage is going to stay on for 12 to 24 hours, it's probably better to use all of it as it will apply the most even pressure, but as a stopgap, just until the vet arrives, you may cut it in half. Some people will even use less, but I would say half is probably an ideal length, and then you can just roll your half and apply it to the leg as shown.